everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. Steve and Will here to go over waiver options for week 6. Will, how you doing, man?
Steve, doing pretty good. Got a couple tight matchups here that are possibly going to come down to Tuesday night football.
That's a terrifying proposition.
Tuesday night football, and then boom, right into waivers.
Yeah, that's I don't have anyone real. I mean, there's a couple of teams. Like I had to start Singletary in my Dynasty League. I have literally no other options.
Yeah.
But other than that, if I had players, I don't think I would gamble with them. I think I would have to sit them for anything else that was somewhat decent. I couldn't roll the dice.
Yeah, with all the craziness and injuries, bye weeks, COVID, my one Dynasty League is coming down to I'm down by 0.65. And if Mike Williams doesn't play tonight, I'll have Adam Troutman, and my opponent will have, Gabriel Davis. So who would have thought that rookie year, I believe, for both of these guys, and could come down to a Tuesday night versus Monday night tonight game.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's...
grasping for straws.
Yeah, that's the truth, man. That's just... The situation we're in. I think I told you yesterday I had to start Van Jefferson in one of my leagues who I really didn't want to start, but with injuries and bye weeks and games getting canceled, and I just got burned. I had to start Joe Flacco in the Triple S Showdown Superflex League. I had Cam Newton on the COVID, I had Stafford on the bye, and I had 3 quarterbacks. So I picked up Flacco and rolled a Flacco, and luckily it worked out pretty well. So
was he was your 4th quarterback then, Flacco?
Yeah, I picked him up. I've been rolling with 3 all year, just the Stafford, Minshew, Newton line. Figured that'd be good enough, but then COVID and buys, and luckily Flacco became available. He got me a solid 20 points or so. Which, I'll take.
Wonder how much Dalton would go for in a league like that, man.
I would imagine a lot.
Injury there, you got a starting quarterback likely the rest of the season.
Yeah, probably a lot, I would think. Good offense around him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, veteran. It's not like some unknown guy coming in.
Yeah, people are saying it's probably the best team he's ever had around him. I mean, he's had 8 here and Eifert, but I don't think he ever played. He never played with Chad Johnson, did he?
No, I don't think so. No.
Palmer, most of Palmer's career.
Yeah,
I think Palmer was there when they had T.O. and Chad Johnson, right?
Yeah, he might have had... who left first, Chad Johnson or T.J. Hushmanzada?
I don't know. Because Chad played in New England, I guess, for a year. I don't know where T.J. went after that, though.
It's, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of research here and see if we can find out. So Andy Dalton's first season was 2011. He played 14 games.
Maybe.
So, yeah, 2011 is you're in that realm. So let's take a look here.
2011 Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, let's see.
Maybe a little Ben Jarvis Green Ellis there.
Cedric Benson. Bernard
Benson's
Scott.
still there.
AJ Green was there. Andrew Hawkins. There's a name I have forgotten. Jerome Simpson.
Yeah, I think Green and Dalton were same draft, first and second round.
Yeah, so they're gone. So or Chad and Hushmanzada are gone. So yeah, it looks like Green, Hawkins, Jerome Simpson, Jermaine Gresham was the tight end at the time. I don't even think they had Eifert this first year. Yeah, that about sums it up.
Yeah, so he hasn't had a ton in the last 10 years, but this will be a great offense. And I guess this is kind of a segue here into quarterbacks, ads. He was probably the one that, going into the 4 o'clock games was least on our radar here, but now springs right into it. What do you think about Andy Dalton here?
Yeah, he's definitely somebody that I don't know. I mean, he's got Arizona this week. It's not a bad matchup. Not the best matchup, kind of like middle of the road, I think. I think I would take unless, I'm sitting with like Mahomes or Jackson, I would take a shot on him regardless. I don't know if I would play him this week, though. I think I'd rather wait a week and just see what happens. Because, it could be all over. It's not going to be all over the radar in that he has a super high upside and a super low floor. Like, I think at worst, he'll be fine, kind of like average, like a lot of these players kind of are. But he's got super high upside given that offense. So I'm taking a shot on him in most situations, I would imagine. He could definitely put an end to your streaming woes. How about you?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to decide. I actually have Dak in, or I guess had Dak in one league, and there's not a ton. Like I'll take a look at just the quarterbacks that scored this week, right? So there is Fitzpatrick. I think is the one that is most appealing outside of Dalton. Derek Carr, but I think he's going on bye. Bridgewater, Minshew. So I got a few options. Cousins, Mayfield. It's luckily a 10-team league, so not as there's going to be more options available. But yeah, Dalton probably seems like he has the most long-term upside with the best players around him there. It's weird to try to think about what you'd be bidding for him in fab dollars because he could be like you said, a long-term guy. Like maybe this is a team where you have him and some weeks a second quarterback, but you roster two, when he has a bad matchup because of the talent around him.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you're just going to have to know your league. You have to look around and see who's struggling with quarterbacks. You got to know who tends to roster two quarterbacks and whatnot. Look at bye weeks coming up because that could weigh on people's mind. I'd probably pay up a little. I know we're always like pay 1 or 2% for your quarterback. I think I'd be willing to throw like 10% down on Dalton.
Yeah, and he's definitely the least owned of all the guys we'll talk about here in quarterbacks, but he probably is going to be the one that's bid the most on because all these other guys have been sitting there for weeks and they had pretty good weeks. The other ones we're going to talk about, but they've been around and no one's been jumping at the bits to get them. A couple of guys in the 20% range, couple around 50 here. Any of the other guys here we're looking at stick out to you that you would be interested in bidding on, or, as like either over Dalton or as like your kind of safety net if you needed a quarterback?
So you mentioned him. It'll be Fitzpatrick. I think like in your situation, I'd like to get Fitzpatrick and Dalton. I think that would allow me to not play Dalton this week and see what he is, and then play Fitzpatrick. Great matchup against the Jets. I mean, beautiful with that in mind, he had a great matchup against Seattle and didn't do a lot with it before either. I mean, he was a fine week, but you would expect kind of more out of a gunslinger like Fitzpatrick. So, it's just in his nature. That's a kind of boom bust you're gonna get. But yeah, he's the most interesting. I'd throw a few bucks down on him. Like you said, David Carr's looked good, but he's on a bye week. Bridgewater's also looked good. I think over the past 2 weeks, he's a QB 4 or 5. He does get Chicago, which is a tough matchup. But he might be another decent one to buy and hold. If you have to play him this week, then maybe so be it. But he might be take a couple weeks to get his feet under him. Again, learn a new offense that is always weighs on people, and he might be putting it all together. It might be a QB1 the rest of the year. You don't know. 2 weeks is something. It's not irrelevant. So that's
and this
not
is
a
all without McCaffrey too.
Yeah, exactly. And Mike Davis has looked good. So McCaffrey coming back is going to give him some sort of boost, but nothing. I want to think monumental because Mike Davis has actually been quite good. But he's another good gab. We got Minshew listed here, and Minshew's like a discount Fitzpatrick. His floor is lower. His ceiling's probably not as high, but he's got a decent matchup against Detroit. What do you think?
Yeah, the one, I mean, they all, you good points on all of them. The one that I think stands out the most to me is Derek Carr. Like, he's probably got that, could he be everything type, be like a season-long starter here. It's the way he's been playing, in our 6-point scoring format in our work league here. He was under 20 twice, but the other games he was 24 or higher 3 times now. Obviously going on the bye, so you may not have to really bid anything on him unless your league is someone who, would maybe not look into that. But he may be somebody that you can grab for free after waivers because he's on bye, and you can get him for a stretch run where comes out of the bye with Tampa, Cleveland, the Chargers, and Denver. So, Tampa's been pretty good against the pass, but so has the Chiefs technically, and he did well there. So he could be interesting, for a longer term guy. That could be something that I look at, right? If I can't get Dalton, pair a Derek Carr and up with Fitzpatrick for this week and go from there. But yeah, I mean, all these guys are solid. Um, you probably have maybe a little longer term option with Dalton and with Carr, whereas Bridgewater probably too. Minshew and Fitzpatrick are probably going to be more matchup based, but yeah, I mean, it's probably Dalton is your big one. Everyone else, you're probably not bidding more than a couple dollars on.
Yeah, it's a good week where if you've had desperate quarterback issues, you could get a Carr, a Bridgewater, a Dalton, pair them with a Fitzpatrick or a Minshew to get you through this week, and then see what you have long term. You might have an answer there. We don't advocate holding two quarterbacks very often, but if you have to do it for a week to get you through a situation and figure out the rest of the year, then so be it. It's not going to kill you as long as you got a decent player you can drop.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts here on the quarterbacks before we move on?
No, I think we can move on.
All right. So next up, we got running backs, and there's one big name here that sticks out. This is something that we've kind of been preaching since draft season. Your handcuffs are guys that you want to get, right, but in all likelihood, it's going to be tough to roster them throughout the year. So he could, we have an Alexander Madison, only 40% owned after the Dalvin Cook injury. What are you bidding on him, Steve?
Oh man, it's a real shame bidding on him, given you don't know what the Cook injury is going to be like. I know you and I were talking before the show, and I think we're both in agreement that we would think Cook's going to get benched this week regardless, given they have the bye week coming up after that. You give him a little bit of extra rest, guy with an injury history, a long injury history. So that would be nice. With that in mind, so with that said, I'd bid a lot, like 40+%, 50+%, but I'm also very hesitant because I don't want to blow 55% of my budget for 1 week, or maybe not even 1 week. Maybe it's 55% and it comes out tomorrow that nothing, showed up in the MRI and he's fine. He's going to be starting this week. And then you just wrecked your budget. Now, it's not a total loss. It's not like you're going out there and spending your budget on somebody that just disappears the next week. Matson's got long-term value for the rest of the year because he's one of the more, if not most valuable handcuffs in the league. So you're getting a quality handcuff there. So it's a tough situation that I don't envy. I don't think I have any leagues where I'd really need to make a run at them. I'd rather just let everybody else burn their fab. But yeah, you're looking over that 50% range, I'd imagine. Do you agree with that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I knew. It's tough. So I have him in one league that I had already rostered him. He totaled over 100 yards. What do you have? Looks like 20 carries, and that's all just in the second half. So he got Atlanta this week, and if he does get the start, he really could be, potential RB1 of the week. So you got a lot of upside this week. And I do kind of I haven't played him had to play him in the league that I do have him already, but he does kind of have, a potential Kareem Hunt appeal where maybe he is flexible in a tough situation that, that you would be in as an owner and can play him even if Cook's available because he does seem to get some work. He had, looks like, 6 carries for 50 yards, 4 catches for 30 yards in week 1, so looked pretty good. Not as much the last in week 2 and 3. I think he only totaled, in the 10s and 20 yardage wise, but put up another 17 yards and a touchdown in week 4, and then 15 points in our half-point PPR without a touchdown here last week. So I think you just got to make a decision. Do you think that it's going to be a longer-term play or not? If you're bidding on him as a 1 to 2 week, then you're probably not going to get him because I'm not, going to bid more than maybe $20. But if you want to go all in and you think, hey, he could be a long-term play, and I think whether this is a shorter injury for Cook now or not, but maybe you look at Cook's injury history overall, you think it's worth it, I'm not opposed to paying 30 or 40, but it's going to be tough because you're probably not going to know before you have to make that commitment.
So I actually have a quick comment on that, Will, of something I just thought about. But before I jump on that, I do want to add, it also depends on where I'm standing right now. If I'm like 1-4 or 2-3 and I really need to buy a win, I'd be much more willing to gamble on that like 50% fab than if I'm sitting at 4-1 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But with that in mind, while you're talking, I wondered when are waivers actually going to run this week? Because of the game on Tuesday, right? It's a little bit different of a week. So I checked our work league on Yahoo, and it's saying our waivers are October 14th.
That would be Wednesday morning.
Yeah, which is still Wednesday morning, which is the norm. But is that going to hold? Because normally you do it after the game's on Monday. Right? Well, there's a game on Tuesday. So normally they run Tuesday because the games end on Monday. They give you like an extra day, right? So
they give you a day to look through, but I mean, at that point, what really is changing aside from that one game's worth?
Yeah. There's not a lot. And I would think that if it were going to be different, that it would be updated already.
Yeah.
But worth taking a look at and just checking in, because I don't know how all the different platforms are handling
it. I'm sure different platforms may do it differently. Maybe someone does a Wednesday into Thursday.
Yeah, and that would give you some additional clarity, which would be real nice in this situation.
It would, and it does look like we're probably not going to have a Thursday night game as far as now. I know that it sounds like the Bills and Chiefs are getting bumped to Monday of next week.
Yeah.
For from Thursday, still the same week. I don't know at this time on a Monday that you can really tell two teams they have to play Thursday instead of Sunday. So we may not have Thursday night football this week.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. But moving along, we got Chase Edmonds listed here. His ownership has bumped up to 64%, so it's finally rising up. I feel like we talk about him every week. I don't think we need to mention him anymore. He's getting plenty of usage. So go get Chase Edmonds if he's available. Brian Hill, will you have any interest there?
It's interesting because he's still been getting some work even with Gurley playing well. So, Gurley is injury prone, as we've seen. I know people don't like to use that terminology, but he does seem like he is a guy that, his body is a little older than his actual age of 24, 25 here. So if there is an injury there, it seems like Hill's the guy they want to go to. He's been getting work and he's been pretty efficient even as the second running back here. So, I mean, I'm not bidding much, but if you really need a running back and you want to stash somebody, and most of the other handcuffs, like your Pollard, obviously Madison at this point, Edmonds, most of those bigger ones are already rostered. Not a bad one to throw a claim in on.
Yeah, I can't. I get the handcuff, but Gurley's up and down with this team. I can't see Brian Hill being any different, so I personally not that interested in him. As a Gurley owner, if I didn't have a lot of running back depth, sure, it would help out. Not super interested in him though. Breida though has piqued my interest a little bit. Finally, big fan of his in the offseason, and with Howard getting scratched, he's shown up a little bit here, put some points up there. Nothing that's going to blow anybody away, but some solid death points that might help you get through a bye week here. So I'd be willing to throw, a few 3-4%, 5% on Breida. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the news that Jordan Howard was a healthy scratch in that game too. So definitely a boost for Gaskin owners that he's going to maybe get some goal line carries. I think he had, at least a couple, or either scored one or had a couple carries in the game on the goal line. But if Jordan Howard isn't playing and you just have Gaskin and Breida, kind of opens it up a little bit. I think it's better for Gaskin, but makes Breida a guy I'd be okay stashing to see what happens. Maybe they work him in a little more. Maybe there's an injury, but he's someone that maybe his numbers are on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that, we really can't comment on any more than we did last week, but Justin Jackson, you really got to pay attention to tonight, just see what his usage is, how the split is without Eckler there, and you'll have to make a decision. He could go from a $0 bid to 30s or 40s, I guess, depending on what his usage ends up being and what that split turns out to be. So you have to play it by ear there. Will, do you have anyone else you really want to talk about?
Yeah, I'd say, it obviously depends on your roster size, but I know a lot of leagues have increased them this year. And it's just interesting to see Tony Pollard only at 22% rostered. The way that they've used him, he's been used more than just the handcuffs. So they like to use him a bit. And we've seen a bunch of major injuries, right? Barkley, Dak, and then even some, longer term injuries like, a few weeks here for CMC. We'll see about Cook. So just knowing that it can happen anytime, and you got a guy like Pollard that could be a bell cow running back if the guy ahead of him gets hurt. 22% ownership sounds a little low for me, especially if your league is a higher roster. So I wouldn't mind stashing him if you have the room.
Okay, moving to wide receivers. I'm sure there's one on everyone's mind. That's Chase Claypool. What are you doing with him?
That's interesting because I feel like this is probably, this is most likely the best game of his season, right? 16% ownership, so that's going to shoot up. There's just a lot of weapons there. And I think he looks to be the real deal, so for Dynasty, if you're, the manager of him in Dynasty, got to be thrilled to be able to go with him moving forward. But I'm more intrigued by the next guy we're going to talk about because I think the next guy we're going to talk about has less people around him and is, going to get a much bigger target share. But Chase Claypool, obviously very talented, touchdown upside. But I don't have the number specifically, but I don't know that he had, he had 4 touchdowns, so you can't really beat that. But I don't know that he really had that many touches other than that, right? Like let's see his numbers. So 3 carries, 6 yards, a rushing touchdown, 11 targets for 7 catches, 110 yards. So yeah, he had a pretty good game overall. But I think he was schemed up really well against the Eagles defense. That last touchdown they had, possibly the worst linebacker in the league, and Nate Gary for the Eagles, covering a wide receiver that has 3 touchdowns already on the day. So I don't think it was just a great situation overall for the defense with him. But I don't know that I'm bidding a ton on him. I just know I'm going to be outbid by someone that's going to throw $30 on this guy that had 4 touchdowns. So I don't foresee myself getting him. I'm probably not going to bid more than 10 to 20 if you really, really want him, and I still don't think that gets it done.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. This is his best game of the year. He's not going to outdo this game. If you are a team where you're kind of if you're kind of in the middle and you want to play the projections where you need to throw a guy in your lineup that could provide some boom, he's a solid, good ad there because that's what he could provide. But he's going to be up and down. You keep in mind Deontay Johnson left this game early too, and that definitely had an impact on Claypool's usage. So yeah, from a dynasty perspective, I think it spells out more because now you're starting to question whether Juju's going to be back. I don't know why you'd bring him back when you got Deontay Johnson. James Washington's look good. Claypool's breaking out, So I think there's bigger dynasty thoughts than regional thoughts. And I agree with you. If I put a bid, I'm going to get outbid by somebody who's laying it all out there. But yeah, we got another interesting one here that Will, you alluded to. Who are you talking about?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Travis Fulgham. He is the wide receiver that everyone knew going into draft season here for the Eagles, the wide receiver 1. Now, he came out of nowhere 2 weeks ago, has 3 targets, but he has the game-winning touchdown pretty much against the 49ers. And, everyone would think was a little hesitant after just a couple targets, but a crucial catch. But it seems like having a wide receiver that Carson Wentz can trust is pretty much what he hasn't had all year. And even at times last year, he never really had that guy aside from Greg Ward that he could go to. The way he played, though, I know you and I have talked about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, in different dynasty leagues that we'd had. He plays exactly like what the Eagles thought they were getting out of Arcega-Whiteside. He's going up making contested catches. catches just about everything. He's threat in the red zone. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", so I'm like 220. He's a big guy. He was on 2 different practice squads before the Eagles claimed him this year, so he's kind of got a crazy story. But 13 targets, 10 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown this week. In a week that Zach Ertz is kind of shrinking, and we have no clue what's going on with him. But even if Ertz is there, I mean, it's a 3-man show with Sanders, Fulgham, and Ertz right now. I think the opportunity is there for Fulgham, so I'd rather bid on him than Claypool because I think it's going to be more consistency there. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. He seems to be the Greg Ward of this year. Basically, like somebody's got to come out of this pit of injury, and it's going to be him. My chief concern with him is Alshon coming back because I believe he was out this week due to an illness. Not that his injury is bothering him any longer, but he was sick. So, we could be seeing Alshon returning sooner rather than later. And what kind of impact is that going to have on him? That would have me worried. But, it's also been a long time since we've seen Alshon. Does he still have it? Is he going to be rusty? And if he is rusty, are you going to get, another 2 or 3 weeks out of this guy? In which case, that's perfectly fine with me. So I agree. I would much rather take my shot there than on Claypool. What would you think is a good percentage? Like 15?
Yeah, you're probably looking in the same range that I'd be comfortable bidding on Claypool, between 10 and 20. And you're doing it noting that they're playing Baltimore this week, so it's going to be a rough game, but maybe the game script's in their favor there. And then you got the Giants and the Cowboys before the bye week in week 9, tentatively. So with everything changing, schedule-wise week to week, we don't actually know if the bye weeks and those games are going to hold up. But as of now, that's what you have. So it's not the worst schedule for a wide receiver of a team that is going to need to throw the ball likely a lot. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking in the 15 to 20 range and just hoping that, hey, he breaks out and is the real deal. Because outside of Alshon and Arcega-Whiteside somehow coming back to relevance, all their other receivers are speed guys and smaller guys for the most part. So he really could complement Rager if he comes back healthy, Jackson if he's at any point healthy. Seems like he would complement them really well. So I do think that there's a chance that he could be relevant, throughout the season here for this team.
Okay, fair enough. Running short on time, so let's blow through some of these other wide receivers. 2 guys that had home run days, Brandon Cooks and Ruggs, both 44% owned. Are you bidding on either of them? You got any interest there?
I wouldn't mind throwing a little bit on Cooks. Ruggs with the bye week coming up, and there's a lot of weapons there that I think are going to be used. Like, I think he had a nice big play, but I think when Edwards is healthy and you still got Waller, you still got Renfro, you still got the running back and Jacobs. There's just a lot of weapons around there with the bye week. I'm not bidding anything there. But Cooks, I wouldn't mind throwing, 5, 6, 7 on if you really need a wide receiver that has some upside.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is what Ruggs is. He catches a bomb pass and he's good, for the week. That's kind of what we expected this year. Cooks can do the same thing, but we got a long history of Cooks. And if he's finally starting to click with Watson, that is noteworthy. It could just be one big game. I think those are pretty high odds. But, if something's starting to click, then, you just found a good flex-worthy wide receiver there. So be willing to bid on him. Anyone else you want to bring up from the wide receiver group?
Our guy Preston looks pretty good, got some catches, and Christian Kirk, I think, is someone that is interesting. Probably not throwing more than 5-ish on either of them, but the 2 guys that I think are on the rise, just usage wise by their teams. So not bad, guys to pick up. Probably not play this week, but see if they can develop into something.
Yeah, agreed. Decent kind of depth plays that can help you get through a bye week. So yeah, I'd be good throwing a few bucks on those. Moving to tight ends, Will. Anyone jumping out at you that you really like?
One that's interesting to me is Cameron Brate. It's probably, you're not going to have to bid on him. You can probably pick him up for free. But if you are in tight end hell anywhere, he's someone that I wouldn't mind grabbing and plugging in if there's really nothing out there, because he seemed to click with Brady, and Gronk doesn't really look like he's got it. He flashes here and there, but Gronk's still one hit away from being injured as well. I think Brake could just be that reliable tight end for Brady the rest of the year that you're probably banking on a touchdown, but he could have his game where he gets, 4 or 5 catches for 30, 40 yards. He's someone that I wouldn't mind getting, and you probably don't have to spend anything on him.
Yeah, he's not going to burn you any given week. He's, the upside might not be there unless he gets a touchdown, but that's 1,000 other tight ends, right? So, he'll be reliable for a few catches. I'll throw out Jimmy Graham. We've talked about him a lot. I can't believe his ownership's still only at 40%. I can understand the hesitation, but the usage is there. He should be owned, I would think. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I picked him up and played him last week in the league where I had Fant, and wasn't thrilled most of the game, but he came down with a touchdown. I think he ended with like 2 or 3 catches for 40 yards. Something maybe like 2 or 3 catches for like 40 yards and a touchdown. You'll be okay with that. It's not the best, but you're banking on a touchdown. That's really the big risk there.
Yeah, absolutely. And defense streamers, well, anyone you want to call out for this week?
The big one that I think may be available because of the impromptu bye and just rough matchups they had earlier was the Patriots defense. They lost a lot of guys, but they still have a ton of talent on that defense. And they had to play a couple of really tough teams to start. And then I think there's a good chance, they're rostered in 72% of leagues here, but that's probably fairly low for them. There's a chance someone probably had to cut them to start another defense this week. So they get Denver, pushing that week back. And then I think the schedule was open up a bit, so they could be a team that you could run with. A couple of other options. The Titans have Houston. We'll see about how good Houston really is now. And then we have the Dolphins against the Jets. So that could be a nice little stream, especially with how good they looked against the Niners.
Yeah, you got some interesting ones. Patriots, 72% ownership. So, 3 out of every 10 of you out there have the Patriots available, and they should definitely be owned. I agree with you on the Titans. They make a lot of sense. They do worry me because of all the COVID stuff going on. That's just a roll of the dice with that team. But it makes sense. And yeah, Dolphins, good desperation play. Not the greatest defense in the world, but yeah, they've shown up. And the Jets, certainly a juicy matchup. So yeah, take your shot. Which one you like the most, unless the Patriots are there, in which case take your shot on the Patriots. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that in mind, that's all the waivers. Will, do you have anything else you want to throw out there before we close up the show?
No, nothing really over here. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy the first Tuesday night football game in I think something like 5 or 10 years here tomorrow. Hopefully we still have that game, and we'll see. Hopefully we can get through this week here of COVID related issues with the NFL and maybe start moving back to a normal thing if the Titans can get their stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening, everyone. Always remember, trust your board.